Aho Vichitram, O marvel picturesque. The phenomenal world has been attributed to Maya, which projects this empty vision. Just as a mirage in the desert is also empty of the water imagined there. Objective reality affords no final satisfaction to the ever-present thirst for knowledge. And such satisfaction comes only when conviction about the real is gained once and for all. In the futile sojourn here, one vision after another tantalizes the spirit, which is finally lost in the wonder of the Absolute. Such is the goal of non-dual wisdom as known to Vedantins from classical Sanskrit times. The phenomenal world is a mere presentiment of the will to live, and in this sense is an empty picture which allures, without any reality as such. No further settlement of the problem is to be sought. Vedanta ends in the non-dual sense of wonder in the vision of the Absolute. Andadvam is blindness, or superstition, whichever is required by the context. As interpreted philosophically or religiously, as the case may be, for months full 4 or 5, growing, becoming, by slow degrees, even though it was who eyes formed one after one, ever warding off death's hand. All that is now past, but to my recollective weeping of that prime fetal time, listen, O Lord of good. The transition of the fetus from a characterless lump of matter to one in which the sense centers become pronounced stage by stage takes a period of several months from conception, as physiology knows. During this whole period, one steady direction is maintained towards growth and life, with tendencies urging to light and not to darkness. Plants are geotropic and heliotropic, while ontogeny repeats the memory of the phylum. The steady direction is a certain development towards a mature phenotype, and this is maintained continuously. Metabolism goes on through time without interference from external factors, and is protected from their interference. The embryo is thus saved from outside conditionings while innate tendencies are given a chance to assert and strengthen themselves. In all this process, that principle which was referred to as grace has its role, which is an important determining factor as against climatic and other adverse factors which, if given scope, could at any moment bring an abrupt end to this unfoldment. These are facts well known to biology, but even in an extended sense, reaching beyond the orthodox limits of biology, the same laws hold good, revealing the organic relation existing and underlying both biology and theology, scientifically and correctly conceived in the light of the method and epistemology of the Vedanta which we have already examined. The conquest of the future is the task of the intelligence. This is the path of bliss. Regrets characterize memories which weigh on the self from an opposite direction, as it were. Retrospection has been recognized as a form of regret by philosophers and psychologists, who see in memory the negative weight of inaction and helplessness. Memory is sometimes consoling when attached to pure forms of subjective quietism, but on the whole memory in actual life is linked up with regrets. The feelings roused in the personality when brooding on the past constitute a familiar element in piety, which is not perhaps the best form that piety can take. Positive piety rejects the past and lives in possible future freedoms in terms of self-realization. Eyes formed one after one. Here the eyes are meant to cover all the senses, which are directed to take cognizance of whatever is presented to them in the environment. Biologically, the senses, which are situated in close proximity in relation to the higher brain centers anteriorly, constitute together a pole which is opposite to the seat of the emotions, often located posteriorly in the viscera or in the tail of certain animals. Evidence of such an ambivalent polarity of the nervous functional centers could be collected, and this would tend to show that all the cognitive centers such as the eyes form a series, as it were, of concentric rings, the outer and most objective being the eyes, and the most subjective the ears, with the sensation of hearing which puts sound and meaning together. Grace may be said to enter into the formation and functioning of the senses and organs, such as sight and the eyes, to the extent that such functioning is independent of memory aspects but rather dependent upon perceptive intelligence. The desire to look at light wills the opening of the sense organs to light. It is in this sense that grace is to be taken as responsible for the formation of the senses. But to my recollected weeping of that time, listen, O Lord of good. Here we have retrospective, regretful piety turning towards the desire for prospective recognition by the higher positive principle of the supreme good. This sentence gives us the key to the whole technique of contemplative devotion or spiritual practice. The annihilation of the past in terms of the future, and the arrival at an eternal present in the self, is the basis of contemplation. When thus examined in detail, this prayer of gratitude adheres to the strict epistemological and methodological fundamentals of Advaita Vedanta. Faith is retrospective, hope is prospective, while the resultant charity is the essence of the bliss of self-realization. Charity in its widest sense is therefore a contemplative human value. Kalen, translated here as death, is more than a mythological figure, inasmuch as Kala means time in Sanskrit. Time, as related to the process of becoming ever new, is a great destroyer of the past. The destructive elements of time which are detrimental to life are here personified in the term Kalen, the god of death. Carmichael has been rendered, in prime fetal karu is the soft kernel or essential part of a fruit or nut. It is the substratum of life at its inception. Yea, semen it was that mixed with blood, and thus by sound matured and taking form I lay mediate. Then for me there was no mother or father, so by thee alone raised, sole parent mine, all that I am is here today. The intermediate stages of the incubation and formation of the fetal personality are now under reference. The biological picture of fertilization given here corresponds exactly to that of science. The ovaries and principles connected with them are referred to generally as blood, while the spermatozoa are referred to as semen. Without going into microscopic details, this corresponds to the biological picture in general terms. Inasmuch as blood would represent the basic aspect and semen the factor which gives character and individuality to the mass fertilized. The two principles that were antinomies are again here referred to side by side. Beyond and besides the material basis for the proliferation of the cells to form the organs, there is introduced the idea of sound as the factor which makes the whole organism mature in the contemplative sense. Sound, as we have noted, is the meeting point of word and meaning. The outer and inner principles meeting through the common sound, conceived as a principle. This theory of the relation of sound to the maturing of matter into organisms finds support vaguely in various Vedantic writings in connection with the theory of Panchakarana, and has been the subject of recent investigation by some Western scholars. This has relationship with the mystery of number itself, which was one of the subjects of Eleatic philosophy, dealing with order and music in regular patterns and scales, expounded by Pythagoras and beginning to be reaffirmed by scientists like Jeans and Eddington. Whatever the final theoretical implications may be, for our present purposes it will be sufficient to know that sound is the medium where the subjective and the objective meet, and where the mind may be said to be inserted in general consciousness. The fetus is no more a mere inert lump, but gains a certain degree of self-consciousness. However low or feebly initiated at this stage, this self, thus integrated, connects positive and negative aspects, and holds them together in unitive knowledge. In this inceptual stage of consciousness, such a self knows nothing of a father or mother. It is innocent of all relations, innocent of the outer world's superimpositions which come only later. Thus by origin, the personality is essentially independent of external human relations. These belong to a social context of a later stage.